emergency, and now join us as we
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is a new public hearing for Hyde Park Quick Stop. May I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. This is an application for site plan and special use permit approval for the redevelopment of a convenience store and fueling station located at 4912 Albany Post Road. This is more or less across from Renaissance Rehabilitation, near the Anderson Center, et cetera, on the east side of 9. Mr. Petronello is here tonight. Let me turn it over to you, Brandon.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. As the chairman mentioned, my name is Brandon Petrella. I'm with Maury Architects, representing Hyde Park Quick Stop. I am going to give just a brief overview. I know the board has seen this, but just to refresh everybody's memory. The chairman described where it's located perfectly, so we'll skip past that, and we'll talk about the site itself. The site itself is the one centered here. You can see the light yellow lines kind of bounding it. They're not exact. I would say the southern boundary is really kind of splits this right here, and the northern boundary is a little bit closer to this parking area. But the site has a completely unrestricted access off of Route 9. This is an entire paved curb cut, the length of the site. The convenience store is located here. There's a large paved area. There's a portion of the, there's 3 completely unprotected fueling stations that currently exist on the site. There's some storage that really shouldn't be there anymore. And then there is also some underground fuel storage is located here on the south side of the site. It's important to note that this portion, the south side of the site, just about up to the convenience store itself, is actually within the 100-foot wetland buffer. There are wetlands located to our south, and then to our east, there's actually a small stream, which I'm not sure what it's a tributary to, actually, so I don't want to misspeak. But there is a small stream. It's approximately, I'll say, about 300 feet away to the east. But it is still there, and it's something that we want to be, aware of in our design. This next screen here, this is just a little street view of the site. Again, here you can see that we have the 3 pumping stations, a diesel and 2 regular gasoline. Again, completely unprotected. They don't have, concrete pad protection to protect from spillage. There's no fire suppression protection. You can see the asphalt itself is in complete disrepair. The building itself is, I've used the term, past its useful life. It also is in disrepair. Then located here on the south side of the site, you can see these are where the underground storage tanks are located. So our project includes basically demolishing and reconstructing this entire site. So here is our site plan. So the first thing that I mentioned that was really critical to us, and I apologize, this is rotated from all the aerial views that we've just been looking at. So north will be on the left-hand side of the image here, and then this would obviously be your east side. So to the south, which is now right, where our wetlands are, you can see sort of this dashed dark line. That's that wetland buffer, and currently the underground storage tanks are located about this area. So the first thing we want to do is get those away from not only our east side, because we have that stream, and not just the south side. So we kind of wanted to push those up out into here onto the west side of the site. Get those away from any of these waterways that we're concerned about. So we have our underground storage tanks located here. Then we brought the fueling pumps themselves in that same area, again, just to get them as far away from any waterway as possible. We have access around the entire pumping station. That's just to help facilitate with queuing. Without access all the way around, depending on how people fuel up, where their fuel tank is located, or the fill on their car is located, you end up getting backups. You get pumps that can't be used. So this having circulation all the way around really reduces queuing, and it'll stop vehicles from piling up onto 9. The other item I want to bring up is the access from 9. We've now done an in and out on the north and south sides of the site. No more unrestricted access, completely unsafe through the site. So now we've really created these pathways for vehicles to come in, come around, get out, come in, come around, get out. The other thing that was, I think, pretty successful with this site is that we've now moved the diesel up here to the north side of the site. This is our main convenience store building, located between the pumping stations, the septic areas, which we then also used as parking area, and then the convenience store. The code requires that we have access to the rear of this building for loading for the commercial building so that they get their deliveries in the rear. So what we've done is, since we have to have that access, we're going to use that as a dual purpose. We're going to move the diesel away from the gasoline, and we're going to, because they're typically larger vehicles, diesel vehicles, and then we're going to use these larger sweeps that we have to allow the larger vehicle to completely bypass all this interior circulation where they may have difficulties or they may create blockades for, you know, regular standard travel vehicles. We're going to allow them to come around the site. This is one way, and then come back out the site this way. So that really actually kind of worked out, I think, fairly well. As far as the rest of the site is concerned, as I mentioned, you know, we have some parking stalls here located between the two buildings, and then we also have some here on the south side. There's some landscaping proposed throughout the site. We have to raise the entire site for the septic system. We move the septic system, as I mentioned, between the two buildings to the north side of the site, with our reserve areas here just south of that. We have to, it's a fill system, so we're raising the site, so we're actually going to need to create a small retaining wall on that northeast portion of the site. This project is also in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals for 3 variances. The first variance is coverage. We do have a lot of vehicular passageways through it. It's a vehicular motivated site, so and it's only 3/4 of an acre. So I felt like we've been, you know, pretty economical with what we've done in the space that we have, but unfortunately our coverage is over. Our other variance that we will be requiring is a scale variance. The canopy, again, it lends fire protection to the pumps. It's also a convenience, protects people from weather while they're fueling, but does count as a structure per code and therefore counts towards scale. And that's really what's tipping us over on the scale numbers. And then finally, we have a variance for the front yard setback. And that's not because we have any structures that are visible above the ground there. It's because the underground storage tanks are also defined as a structure by the code. And again, trying to get those as far away from the east and south, we've located them in this access aisleway here, but it does require a front yard setback. I have been in front of the board for one meeting. We will have a public hearing next week. They seem fairly receptive to the project, so I'm looking forward to hopefully having some answers on where we are with that at our next meeting. This has changed since our first meeting. We had some comments from you guys initially, so we've started to develop the exterior of the building a little bit based on some of those comments. So we've kind of developed the color scheme a little bit more. Instead of the sort of colder grays, we've now kind of have a browner gray tone to it, a little bit more, I think, historic, classical look to it. We've also developed some more trim work around the base. We've extended that stone across the entire bottom as the board had suggested, which did actually not only did it reduce the storefront, I know that you guys were worried about signage in that, but it also gave us the opportunity. I started looking at it, and we actually changed the proportions of the windows too, and which I do think will look a little bit more traditional. So I think this really has lent itself to the Hyde Park style a little bit better. We also incorporated some decorative bracketing. We beefed up some of the trim around the roof line and fascias. And kind of followed that through all around the building. The stone itself, we've actually, instead of having such a deep gray black stone, we actually introduced another stone that's got, again, some tans to it. So it's, a little warmed up the building quite a bit, I think. And I also think bringing the stone around and these trim elements actually brought the building down to a more traditional proportion. So that's so we've incorporated those. These drawings will obviously be in our next submission. I just wanted to show the board how we're starting to develop it. We now have some samples also available here of kind of what the color schemes we're looking at. I do have physical samples. They'll be on their way. Hopefully they'll be here for the next meeting, and I'll bring those along as well. No.
Oh.
We have fiber cement. So I'll have those samples for you next time. Just real quick, this is the canopy. We have a couple metal, standing seam metal dormers on top of it. No signage is proposed in those dormers. Just to accentuate that front facade will be kind of towards the front of the site as we discussed. Other than that, it's fairly similar to what you've seen. I think just enhanced. The next slide I want to show you is because one of the big things that came up was the discussion on the lighting. What I've done is I've worked with our lighting engineer, and so the big concern, what really throws this whole building off is the canopy. That's really what it is. Our hot spots are at the canopy. The lighting levels around the building themselves are fairly standard. The lighting levels in the parking areas are basically 1 or sub 1. Average across the parking areas was sub 1 foot candle. But again, the canopy was the issue. So our lighting engineer uses national standards. National standard says that your canopy should be 20, on average, across that area of the canopy underneath it, should be 20-foot candles. We came in originally at 16 and a half. So now what we've done is we've received some comments from other reviewing agencies, and they were looking for a 10-foot candle was their suggestion, even though they acknowledged the 20-foot candle was the recommendation. In the interest of So our lighting engineer's concern is that this is an area where tasks are actually being undertaken. Too little light can lead to spillage, can lead to people not doing things properly. But at the same time, I understand where we're at. We don't want a high glare situation or something overly lit. So what we've tried to do is actually just meet in the middle there. So we've actually gotten to about 14 and a half underneath the canopies. That would be our average. We went from a peak of, I believe it was 24-foot candles to one spot where there is 21, but again, on average, we are now down to 14, and I don't want to screw this up. I'm not sure how to zoom here. But we're down to 14 point something. I want to say it was 14 and a half. The rest of the average across the rest of the site, we were outside, not considering the canopy. Previously, we were just a little over 1 foot candle on average. We've now introduced, we've reduced the lighting rather, around the rest of the site down to about 3/4 of a foot candle on average. So we've also reduced the lighting on the average site. Now, one of the things, again, that's sort of throwing that average up even more, though, is there is some spillage from the canopy out around this perimeter. And that's also what's kind of beefing up the areas outside of that. So in general, it is actually a little bit lighter. We had them actually create a couple slides, or not.
Those were very helpful,
They were,
actually.
yeah.
They were excellent.
Very
This is our new lighting plan. It's very dark.
Need more light.
Very light, yeah.
Yeah, those were super helpful.
All right, so it doesn't want to show that in the full screen mode. So we had him develop these. So you can see it really kind of gives you a better idea. Instead of just talking these average numbers, which do sound a little scary when you say 16-foot candles, here's a plan. You can see it's really the canopy. And again, the standard is 20. We're trying to get under 15, meet in the middle. But the rest of the site, you can see, is very minimally lit. It really is. We do have a little light spillage over on the west side of the property due to the canopy volume and because we brought the light poles down here to this area. But in all honesty, because Route 9 is not lit, I would like a little bit of light here at our entrances. So that is something that I'd like the board to consider, that I think it's important that these two curb cuts get a little bit of light. And you can see, again, that little bit of spillage is really just at the curb cuts. It's not here at the property line where the curb cuts don't exist. So, and then this is a 3D version of that same model. Kind of let you see the hot spots. They're right on the wall fixtures, right there. And then the hot spot is really, it's just under the canopy. Once you get beyond that, the glare and everything is really cut down. And I will stop talking your ear off because I think that's the end of my slides. But that's kind of where we stand. We do have several other comments from other agencies that we do have to resolve, and that will be part of our next submission. But just a little update on where we are today.
So, Mr. Petrella, that was a great presentation. I know that I heard sighs of pleasure to see the stone wall moved around, particularly from Board Member Waters, who suggested that initially. I think it does look better. All the details you changed, you're right, they're small, but they make it look more traditional.
Yep.
And actually a little bit more magisterial as well, in my opinion. We do have CAC comments that we received that you'll need to respond to. You already did respond, I think, to some of what Ms. Lavarnway wrote in Dutchess County Planning. But I do want to tell you that the board is familiar with hotspots caused by LEDs under canopies. So long as the average stays more or less normal and goes down quickly at the edges, the board has been fine with that in the past. And I appreciate that you got the overall site, excluding the canopy, down to 0.75 foot candles. That's pretty dark.
Yeah.
And this is a rural area. This is why it's not lit up probably the way it is. So I think some of the neighbors will probably be happier. At the same time, one of my vice chairs is always concerned with safety, and this is a dark area when you drive by. There's some people who won't even stop there because there's no light to make them feel safer, so you're going to solve all that with these issues. And I know you were waiting to make a new submission pending hearing public comment. So first, let me go to our consultants. Ms. Franson, any comments or additional comments?
So we had issued comments previously, and you have made adjustments to it. Just to confirm, the canopy lights are fully recessed at this point?
They will be, absolutely, yeah. And actually, one of the comments, and this will be coming in our upcoming submittal, I plan to have kind of a preliminary section through the canopy itself. Those that kind of trim work is actually going to be dropped down from the ceiling. The ceiling will be popped up sort of like a tray. So not only will they be recessed up in that surface, they'll actually be, there will be a border around the whole thing as well.
Which will probably help the illumination levels as well.
Correct.
And casting it. There was a discussion about the air monitors that, are they going to be within the ceiling, or are they going to hang down like some of the other gas stations in the town? And I think aesthetically, I don't know that you were opposed one way or the other to providing the different types, but the planning board may want to discuss a preference. With regard to DOT, has there been discussions about the landscaping? Because the street trees are actually in the right-of-way, and I noted that county planning also picked up in that as well.
Yeah, that's an ongoing discussion. We haven't gotten comment back from DOT, so that's unaddressed at this point.
Okay. Then, as far as deliveries, I see that there's some lights back there. Are there doors? Because I imagine then you need some kind of concrete pad or something to get the deliveries. You're showing lawn area on the site plan, but I don't see, where are you loading? I think you have some grass in between loading and
Yeah.
doors, so you'd need to just extend.
This sidewalk really needs to extend. Right now, we're currently discussing this being the access to the floor plan. The floor plan is not entirely finalized with
Okay.
the owner, but right now our intent is to have that. This sidewalk would extend, as you're mentioning. You could park here at this point and then unload and come into here. If we decide, or he decides, I should say, that they want access somewhere else, we would then obviously provide the concrete pads that you're mentioning.
Okay, great. County planning also mentioned this, we're trying to stay around 3,000 Kelvin as far as the temperature of the color, so it's not stark.
Yeah,
Which
so
is different from the lumen levels.
yes, it is, and I just want to address that real quickly. So that was another thing that I spoke about with the lighting engineer. Their recommendation, the national standard recommendation for a gas station and this type of use is actually 5,000. So again, these fixtures that we have worked with are only available. 4,000 is the lowest Kelvin they go. 4,000 Kelvin is actually something that they say is better for task type work and fueling. The cooler, really the target that LED really gets down to at most is like 3,500. So we're not that far away. The next step up from 4,000 and what you see on most LEDs is 55 and 6,000. So we really have kind of pulled it down at being at the 4,000.
When you make reference to national standards, what national standards are you referring to?
EI, I don't remember the acronym.
Are you talking about the
Yeah.
Illuminating Society? Okay, okay.
And again, these are all from the lighting engineer. I'm not opposed. I do personally like the warmer light, but task apparently is, when you get into a little bit of that higher Kelvin, is better for task type lighting.
So the other thing I was going to mention was that, just from for perspective, the New York State ATM Act, which is very much concerned about safety at ATMs, their minimum is 10-foot candles. So,
Yeah.
relative to what you're proposing, 10 is definitely ideal. But certainly if you bring it down from 20, that's very useful. But again, just for context, for ATMs and full safety, 10 is acceptable. That's the New York State ATM Act. And that's it for now. We just got, additional submission today, so we'll take a look at it, but definitely have gone in the direction of addressing a lot of the board's comments at this point.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll definitely have a full submission addressing all of the comments.
Thank you, Bonnie. Ms. Moss?
The diesel fueling area doesn't have a canopy, and it doesn't seem to be particularly well lit. Excuse me, with the vehicle parking between the light pole and the fueling station, unless they pull on the other side. I'm wondering whether that has fire suppression, and can you describe a little bit what it would look like?
So what we would do in that case is sort of what we've been discussing, where it would be a ground-mounted and lower and not up in a canopy, which I think is kind of what the board has been looking for. They don't want the fire suppression up in there with all the nozzles sticking down. They want more like what you've done in some of your other locations. So I think that's how we would handle this as well. You do bring up a good point about the lighting there. That's something that I think I want to look into a little bit more, because I think that's a very good point. It's a little difficult. We have discussed it a little bit because we had some difficulty with trying to light that and also maintaining nothing on the property lines and amping things up. So, but it's a valid point, and we'll look further into it.
And you're familiar with the light pole height restrictions?
Yes.
Okay. Excuse me. The small retaining wall, approximately how tall will it be?
I believe it is close to 2 feet or under.
Thank you.
Anything else to add? Ms. Polidoro, any comments?
No, not at this time.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, is that too loud?
No, it's just very vehement.
No. Well, I haven't had a chance to look at the new submission, so when we receive it, I will
Did
study
we
it.
receive a new submission?
There
today?
hasn't been a new submission. This was
what
just
he's
an update.
presenting is an update.
Oh, okay,
I
right,
just said no.
that I saw. I was like, but we don't have a new full submission. This is
No.
just, it's just the visuals, because I got a chance to look at them.
Right, I mean, I don't have any legal
Okay.
comments based on this so
Thank
far.
you. Then let me start to my right, Mr. Guercio. Any comments?
No comments.
Mr. Oliver?
I have no new comments to add. Thank you.
Ms. Dexter?
Yeah, so I read the DC planning comments, and because we would have to have a supermajority, I would like just to fully understand the reasoning why, if you're completely redeveloping the site, why the building isn't up front and everything is behind it.
So again, that sort of came because we were trying to keep all of, and this was kind of part of our previous, or our initial presentation, is we're trying to keep all of the fuel as much as possible to the east and north sides. So, I'm sorry, the west and north sides, because we have waterways to our south and to our east. So if I were to put the fueling canopy on the eastern side, or even rotate as we're talking about, I would still be putting, I wouldn't be able to, because I have less width than I have more width than I have depth. If I put the building, let me start with just flipping the building. Let's just start with there. If I put the canopies in the back, that puts the fuel closer to the waterways. So that was the first reasoning that we started with. The second thing that I believe the Dutchess County had recommended is rotating the buildings. But if we rotate the buildings, then we don't have parking behind a building, which the town code requires. The parking would then be between the buildings. So that would be the issue.
I'm being Tad's advocate.
I can already answer this. I've already
Yeah.
explained this. I explained this to Ms. Lavarnway. I can
Right.
answer all of it.
Yeah.
You
Well, I'm
start-
sorry, just
What?
because
No,
we
no, no,
all,
this
we all
is,
need
it's a
to-
good thing to do.
Right.
So I
What-
forgot that it hasn't been explained everywhere, but you start with the definition of a structure, which is a static assembly of materials, and then it lists including, and it says including a fuel pump, canopies, a vending machine, I don't understand that.
This actually is not a canopy by our definition.
Right,
It is a structure. It is considered a building,
building,
which is
yeah.
a roof on columns or walls.
supported by columns or walls.
That provides shelter.
So it is up front because it is a building.
It is up front.
Yeah.
Right, and I just want to make sure that we're all clear on that, because that's, and I remember that from the very first discussion, but it was like, refresh my memory again? Yeah.
Nope, that's okay.
It's always good to get this into the record.
It boils down to technical definitions.
Yes. Because this is providing shelter for a person and property
Yep.
if you're fueling.
And therefore, the parking under the structure is also behind the front building line.
So
There you go.
I guess we should just explain for the new members. When county planning issues a letter that recommends a change, if it's not something that's automatically a matter of local concern, the board cannot act contrary to the county's recommendation here. The board could not approve this plan unless you have a supermajority, which is going to be 5 members voting yes. And then we have to send a report back to the county.
As to why we voted.
Yes, and in 108-4.5B to A, I think, or B, one of the two, that's what says that all parking must be to the rear of the front of the building. So when I spoke with Heather, she said, well, the counter argument would be then that the primary use is actually the convenience store because that's where all the money is. But and just for the record, that is also incorrect. That is where all the
Correct.
profit is, but the money actually, your gas sales are much higher than what your convenience store typical purchases are. Particularly right now when I gas up, it's $60. But I mean, so you're being drawn in to go into the store to either pay or buy something incidental, but your sales in there are smaller. It's just that, from what I understand, I'm talking to an owner of a filling station, the profit on gasoline right now is really only 1 or 2 cents a gallon. It's not much. So they have to have the convenience stores to drive the rest of the enterprise.
Yeah,
So,
even your own code actually makes the the way I read it, makes the fueling station the primary, and you are allowed
Yes,
to
it's
have
a
a
secondary
convenience
use,
store.
yes,
It's the
yes.
secondary use.
so.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Oh, I like that. That's very interesting. So thank you very much for that. And so then another question, comment is on the front, on the landscaping. I think you need to drop the trees because seriously, I remember the very first time you showed me, I was showing you all everything around here that there's like one straggly little
Yeah.
1-inch tree. I don't think they're going to allow it, but I do still really like the model on the south end of town where you could take how you had taken the wall and put it in the front of the building, mimic that in the front, like the gas station at the entrance to town, down the south, like that, and then you can put some shrubbery and stuff down.
You mean Speedway?
Well, whatever it's called now, because
Speedway. It was.
I can't keep up with it.
It was
It was
Hess when
Hess
we
for a
approved
while,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, it might be something different by now, but anyway, so I would kind of because that could also be viewed as like bookending.
I think that's true.
North, south, entrance to town, both have like a very similar sense of place, stone wall, blah, 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 all that fun stuff. When we talk about the lighting, and again, we've had so many now before us. I remember, I think it was the mobile station up at the East Park, where we were told with the way the new lighting is, it can be designed and angled and stuff so that there's absolutely no light spillage
For the most
beyond
part,
the
yeah.
canopy, not just around the edges of the property, but at the canopy. So if you're arguing task lighting, then I don't really want to see the spillage, and I do understand the safety issue, but there's not a lot of people walking around there. They're going to be pulling in. So I would prefer to see no light spillage. You've got the Anderson School is directly across the street there, and it is a beautiful campus, and I'd hate for them all of a sudden to start seeing a glow in the sky to the east. I don't think that would be good. Although what you showed me didn't indicate that there would be a glow, but
Yeah.
I'm overly sensitive because it is the country, and I don't want this burning bright hot spot to be there. And yes, if you could address or find a solution for the lighting at the diesel station, I think that's one thing that's been overlooked. That's all.
Those were very good. Thank you. Ms. Wasser?
Yes, thanks. First, I want to say I find your approach to be thoughtful, and you've been very responsive to the comments. I really appreciate how you've, listened and responded.
Thank you.
I like the stone knee wall. Thank you, Rob. Thank you for including it. I appreciate it very much. I like the trim, the definite change in the windows. And I do support the pumps being in the front. I think it makes sense for the waterways, as well as the fact that it's considered a structure, so I don't really have an issue with it. I wanted to know, do you know what approximately the hours of operation? Do you know what the owner, how late at night?
I
it
do
would be
have
open?
those, if you just, let me leaf through this. We did list those in the.
It's in the EAF.
Yes, we did review
Oh, I
that
missed
with
it, I'm
them.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's in the new form, not the old form, we discovered.
Oh,
So we're, Monday through Friday, we're doing 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and, oh, I'm sorry, wrong ones. During operation, 5 a.m. to 10 p.m.,
Yeah.
every day.
so 10 PM, okay. I think those are my only comments. I also thought that the modeling of the light spillage is super helpful.
I think that really clarifies. It really
It
doesn't
does.
spill much from the canopy
Right,
at all.
it's quite dark around the perimeter of
It
the
is.
property, so thank you very much.
Yes, it's just during construction, it's 7 a.m. to 7
Yeah,
p.m.,
yeah,
that's why.
that's why I read the wrong line there. Apologize. Well, when I got down to he's closed on Sundays, I said, that can't be right.
Mr. Waters, comments?
Yes, no, I mean, you listened, it's I think it's a very beautiful building.
Thank you.
I also, did you add a frieze and corbels or rafter tails?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
added.
which is a detail that is really well done.
Yeah, we
at the
built up
top.
this frieze,
Yeah.
then we added some large brackets around the side, so, yeah, I really think those details
It adds
really
mass, yeah, to it. and-
brings it down a little bit.
Yep, exactly.
Anchors it.
Exactly. And then also with the spillage for the light, I think the stone wall and all of that will help contain some of that. I see what they're saying about the trees, but the trees would also help with some of that too, I think. The glow. But everything that you did was right on, spot on.
Thank you.
Nice job.
I do just want to point out that when it comes to the trees, Vice Chair Dexter had raised this issue at the last meeting too, that she didn't think DOT would allow them. And, sorry, I can't remember when, a few years ago, I was helping with a project to plant street trees around town. And we were able to, DOT permitted us to plant them in the right-of-way as long as the town entered into an agreement or signed an agreement that we would remove any dead trees, dead limbs that fell down, I believe.
And below a certain height, you had to be able to walk under it?
And they had to agree to be limbed up so that a person of, say, average height, which I think these days would be probably about 5'7", but at any rate, so someone could walk under without getting blinded, et cetera. So if you're interested in providing the trees, and it certainly will soften it, although I think it's a beautiful building and can't wait to see it, there are ways in which to work with DOT. It's a simple agreement, but it's binding upon the current owner and all future owners of the site to maintain the trees that way. So, not that I know that they go around and say, oh my God, we're going to sue them, so at any rate. Yeah, but it's just about safety and traffic flow, as you can
Sure.
understand.
I did have one other thing was, we did talk about the penetrations through the roof.
We haven't.
But
I
know you
you
don't-
mentioned
you-
that.
the
I don't
layout
know
is not
exactly what those are.
complete.
I
Right.
did.
I understand.
We addressed the one big one that I know will happen, and
Yep.
that was we actually show here the suppression hood that'll be in the deli over all of the cooking appliances. So
Yep.
instead of having that go through the roof, we're just going to go through the wall there.
Through the wall, yeah.
I'm not anticipating a ton of penetrations, but you're right. There will be exhaust fans. There'll be things like that. Exhaust fans will probably be able to mount those just as low slopes and just make them black. You probably won't even see them. And then, plumbing vents and things like that could just be painted black and probably would disappear. But again, haven't developed that enough to answer that specifically.
Exactly.
We haven't really
Floor
addressed it
plan
yet.
and all that layout and stuff, yep.
Yes.
I understand, yep.
That was the point you raised last time too, because I have 2 stars by it. Venting should be shown, so.
Yes.
Ms. Weiser.
Nothing really to add, just appreciate your sensitivity to the points of view of the board, and I think it looks fantastic.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Would any member of the public like to speak about this application? If you would, just come on up, state your name for the record. That's all it takes. Okay, I'm not getting any takers on that one, so let me then provide my comments, which are only to repeat one thing that was said last time by Ms. Moss, which is that, let me find it, you need to show items that are sold outdoors, whether propane, ice machine, bundles of wood, anything else, or at least show an area to say maybe seasonal merchandise sales, something like that, so we would know where it's going to be. And then the other point that was made last time, actually, you've addressed almost everything else, yes, that was made last time. I will say that the venting should be shown, that you can't do that yet, but that was also an issue as well. And otherwise, everything that, well, I think you remember that everybody here on the board seemed to react with like extreme pleasure, loving it the way it looked then, and you've heard even more compliments now.
That's great.
So the next question then would be, when would you like us to adjourn this to? There's a public hearing starting on the 27th of this month with the ZBA that you're before. They did not send a recommendation request from us on any of the variances on this one, I don't believe.
I don't recall that they've done that.
Did they do that once they open a public hearing, or do they open that when they workshop? Do they workshop and just?
I think it's probably at the public hearing.
Okay, so
So the zoning board won't be able to vote, though, because we have not completed SECRA.
this is true.
So
They
it,
could ask
the
for a recommendation.
board is going to have to continue it. for
Oh,
a month
absolutely, but I'm just, so then if they can't, we have to conclude seeker,
Before the
and
zoning
we
board
can't
can
conclude
vote.
seeker because we don't have all the responses yet from all the
I
relevant.
mean, the responses were due yesterday, I believe, but we really shouldn't act until we get some input from DOT.
That's what I'm
and the
thinking,
other
is really
agencies.
DOT.
Yeah.
And just so you know, Brendan, the last time that we got a response from DOT, I believe it was after we'd approved the project. So I'm just letting you know that the lack of the 30 days does not delay projects as far as we are concerned, if we give them a reasonable amount of time. My colleagues have had to hear this lecture before, and I've told some of the other agencies, if you want more time, just say, hey, we consent to being lead, but we have some comments, they'll be coming. But when we don't get anything, they're not going to get anything either then. So, at any rate, so would you like us to adjourn this? I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't, if we
We can
hear from-
continue the hearing for 2 months, but do a workshop
I was
in
going to say, we can
between.
workshop to do seeker or anything else with new submissions. So would you like this to be extended out to June 1st or May 18th?
What would be the submission deadline for June 1st?
May
Well,
18th.
technically, 2 weeks before June 1st, so I guess that's May.
Let's say May
18th.
15th or something like
Yes,
that.
but I also wanted to explain that once you're in the pipeline, if you need like 10 days instead of 14, the board can usually accommodate that because we're familiar with the project.
Okay.
It's the first time when someone says, hi, this is here, they presented that night, I'm like, we can't review this, we don't have time.
I don't want to do that.
Yes.
There's decent engineering comments that I want to make sure that we have resolved. So I feel like that May 15th deadline would be fine, or 18th, whatever it would be. I think we can have everything resolved and responses back for you then, so that would be fine.
Great, then may I get a motion to adjourn this to June 1st, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Vice chairs, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Petrella. It's a pleasure, as always.
Thank you so much.
And if we get a request for to comment on your scale, area, and front setback, I assume that the board would be in favor of us recommending that they grant them? Do I hear nods?
Yes.
Or, I mean, do I see nods and hear yeses?
Yes, to me.
Yes.
It's hard to hear a nod.
Yes, yes, it's a nod.
I was going to ask that question. I wasn't sure if you guys send a recommendation or they have to request it, so I'm glad that you
Well, we
clarified
generally
that.
wait for them to send it, and sometimes when we have really outrageous requests, usually involving signs, we actually send them a note requesting that they ask for our recommendations.
Okay.
Because usually we have the ability to grant some dimensional increases at our discretion based on setback from the road, size of the building, and then overall aesthetics. So if they're going to get a variance, they often have to come to us first so we can grant the maximum we can. Then ZBA gets to grant the minimum that they can. So that's when we usually have our strongly worded letters of, please let us comment further. So at any rate, that won't be a necessity here.
Okay, excellent.
So-
So I will speak to the zoning board about that next week.
Good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chairman, members of the board.
The next item is a continued public hearing for Hyde Park Town Center North. This is for an office where the former Grand Union or Amish Market was. Make a motion to reopen the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
You guys are on a roll.
That's right.
You want to pull that out, or use that?
Better to open
There's
that.
another one there? No, that one's mine. So, yeah, you have the lights on there.
Yes, I have
Oh, it makes it
plenty, yes.
So while we're undertaking technical issues, we had many back and forths today with the applicant. So Kelly will be presenting tonight new enclosure gate doors or gates, I should say, for the dumpster enclosure. What was listed on the current plans, or the most recent plans we had, were white aluminum slats, and she had seen something better. You'll see a new elevation, and she also added, originally there were gooseneck lamps proposed over the entry doors. Those have been removed and replaced with the same cylinder lights that you see on buildings 3 and 4, i.e. where Domino's is, et cetera, down there to help tie this in further. And with that, I'll leave it up to you, Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh my
Oops. I think we all got. My apologies.
It's okay.
I thought I had them all opened. All right, we'll do it one at a time. Oh, they're there. Thank you, Kelly Leibel with KRC Planning Consultants, representing the applicant. And as you had indicated, Mr. Chairman, we were before this board last time, at which time we received comments mostly relative to the elevation of the building, some comments relative to the site plan of the building. And so we did provide you with a cover letter that went through all of those changes, just noting all the board's comments and all the changes. There were some subsequent comments that were received by the board and its consultants, and this is the current elevation that's before you this evening. Notably, some of the bigger comments were noted that although it doesn't look like fieldstone, the planter will be fieldstone, 24 inches with a cap. So again, as you had recommended, that can also be used as a seating wall. We acknowledge that the concrete is going to be removed underneath of the sidewalk for the planters, or for the plantings. Acknowledge the proximity of the gas meters on the end of the planting. The original elevation that you looked at last time had this sign boxed out with the brown wood siding, or hardy, and so we removed that, and a note here that this sign would be halo lit, and as you recommended, we need to come back for a permit for this sign once the tenant moves forward. Most significantly was the change to the color that I think you saw at the last meeting. This is the teak color. We extended the teak down this column, but made some changes at this last submission, and these middle columns created the darker color. We removed the white trim at the bottom and replaced that with the darker trim, which is the color of the building. The canvas awning is noted as being canvas. The windows consistently look like blue, but they are clear, transparent, and they were noted on the plan. Trim base, modified in this. I think that was, we added the light. The light was supposed to be underneath of the canopy, but at the last minute, we did change the light, so we're using the light that's on this elevation, which is, ties the project a little bit together, which is, this is, I guess, a cylinder light that you would call it. I did get a picture of it, so I can show it to you. Last minute, I just went and took this picture before we got here. So this will be the lights on both sides of the door, which is consistent with the other lighting on the facility. And then we modified the dumpster gate detail. So I think I mentioned this to you last time. I was going through a project that's just south of the town of Hyde Park in the town of Poughkeepsie, and I actually liked this for the dumpster gate. It really ties in with the look of the plaza, with the dark panels. These are, it's a reinforced product, synthetic product, and then the dark metal siding on the dumpster enclosure. So we'll propose that on the plan as well. As far as the site plan was concerned, I think that we just made some modifications to show the location of the dumpster and the dumpster detail, added the light on the lighting plan, corrected the parking pursuant to the discussion that we had at the last meeting. And I think I've hit everything that we changed on the plan.
You did, thank you. And I want to thank the people who work in our office, specifically Cynthia and Tad, as well as our consultants, for the ability to go back and forth all day long with the resolution. So thank you.
Thank you.
I more or less sat at my computer all day just waiting for things to fly back and forth. So it was interesting to say the least. And I do just want to say one thing that I keep forgetting to say, but Tad has brought it up before. The lights above the tenant sign that are going to flash down, they may interfere with the halo light, so I'm not sure how to correct that.
We could remove the signs or the lights above the sign, but I think they're nice on the
It
landscaping.
gives a nice wash for the landscape, that's what I
And
was going
so
to say.
perhaps when we come back for the sign permit, when we know the exact dimensions of the letters and the length of the sign, maybe we take the two middle lights off at that time, because we have to come back before this board anyway.
Okay.
So depending upon what the length of that sign looks like, they may stack the name of the tenant.
Yeah, there's many opportunities there. We're just more or less approving a general area for the
Correct,
sign. So,
correct, yep.
and we don't know exactly what the words are going to be on it either.
Correct,
No, even they don't know.
correct, yes.
Yes.
So, I mean, just one option, could it be flipped where the tenants, the sign is a little higher and the lights are a little lower, just to, again, downlight
can be.
into landscape? So there's some alternatives when you're certain of what the signage is.
That's a good idea, yeah, just to accent the
Yeah, just literally
landscaping.
to
Yep,
flip
flip it up.
Because I think at night, this is going to, the glow would look nice with the landscaping
Yeah.
that you would have, and then another glow up above with the sign would really make it pop. Not that people are going to necessarily be looking to find this location, given the nature of the business. So, Bonnie, any other, let me turn it over to you, comments?
No, I don't. I think you've gone back and forth. Actually, I have one little comment. Sorry. What we call this knee wall, if I look at the planter, the planter's about 2 feet. What is the height of that border or trim that's at the base by the windows? Because it looks like it's maybe 12 inches.
18.
I don't know that height.
Was it 18?
I'm sorry.
I think it should be 18.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Okay,
It looks like, when it was white, I could see that it was more than half.
right. And right now, it's looking like it's a little less if you kind of zoom into where the planter is and that area. Are you trying to match the base of the windows? Because it actually, at least on this rendering, seems even lower than the base at the window.
I think the windows, so I'm not an architect, but I believe that in order for them to be, what's the term that I'm looking for? They have to be above 18 inches
Yes.
above the grade.
Yeah,
What's the
tempered.
word? Tempered,
Yeah,
yes,
tempered.
thank you. I knew it was
Yeah.
T.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you,
I'm
Rob.
sure that
Thank you,
they're
Rob.
18 inches above grade for that reason.
Okay, so it'll probably
I would
be
imagine it's
18.
at
I
least
think it's 18.
18
By
going
code-
across
by
then.
code, That I
Yep.
think, yeah.
Okay.
I'm used to residential, not commercial.
Commercial, but I
Okay.
think it's still 18.
think
for
it's 18.
commercial.
Okay. That was the one thing, because with the scale of the drawing and the way
hard
it's
to tell.
drawn, it looked like differing heights here, but it's going to match up with the bottom of the window then,
Correct.
at 18.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
thank
Yep.
you. That was it, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. Any comments?
No comments, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Polidoro.
No, we prepared a resolution, we can discuss the conditions as we go through it. This discussion right now about switching the lights leads me to ask, are you going to do that? Because we should incorporate that into this approval tonight, so you don't have to come back to switch the lights later.
So do we have to come back for planning board approval for the sign?
But the sign permit itself is not a site plan amendment, it's
I
just a
see.
sign.
So I would move forward with modifying the lights and bringing the lights lower so they accent the landscaping and the planter, and then,
Okay, so we'll just add that as a condition, so you can put that on the next set, so we don't have to
for the
do
sign
this
set.
again.
Okay, thank you, that's a good idea.
Can you take care of that while I get comments?
I can, yes, I'll do that right
Because you
now.
have your handy-dandy laptop with you. Thank you.
I do.
Let me start to my right this time, Mr. Gershio. Well, I did it last time, too. Sorry. Mr. Gershio, comments?
No comments.
Mr. Oliver?
Just thanking the applicant for listening to some of our suggestions, and I do like the color along the bottom, and I like the knee wall and the canopies. I think it's a good addition.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dexter?
I also echo my colleagues' compliments and how fast you've turned things around. Victoria, I have some comments that I think might need to be added to the resolution.
All right.
So when we talk about the awnings, we don't know, like, really what the material is.
It says canvas now.
Canvas.
But there's like all different, there's shiny canvas, there's not shiny canvas, there's all
Okay.
these things. So, we normally get samples, like, here's what it's gonna be. I just want
Do
to.
you want to see a sample before it's approved? So you want
No,
that-
I just want to be able, because when.
No, I mean, we can write it so that they have to come back as a condition and show you a sample.
I don't know, we can see what
Before
my
installation?
we can see what my colleagues think. I just, I think that normally we have, a sample and or a picture, which brings me to my next question. In one of the cover letters, you've given a link to the website for the fiberboard.
Right.
And so I can see that, and I'm like, okay, that's a good sample. Is that enough on?
How
or
about
should-
if, when I bring the plans in for signature, I include a PDF, a sheet that has all of the materials on it, so that you know, once it goes to construction, you know
Right.
exactly what the materials are.
Right, yeah, because
So
we
I'll add
normally
that.
keep all that on file here
Yep.
so that we can tell.
Fair enough. I'll
that
add
it's all
that
been
as
done.
as a sheet. Lately, what we've been doing post-COVID is actually doing a PDF of the board, if that's okay with you. So it'll have the manufacturer, the spec, and then an image of
In
it.
other words, instead of bringing a materials board in, just do a
Right.
PDF.
It's a
of it.
drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll attach it to the back
Right,
of the.
along with the link to the website, the manufacturer website, which,
Perfect.
is like,
Because that's how you can see it.
right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. So you're going to come back for the sign. Does that mean that we would not have to talk about the material and the color of the sign elements?
Tonight, correct, because I'm not 100% sure what they're going to be.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
imagine
I
it's
think that's good, because
black.
Remember, there's still a mysterious box out there
Yes.
where things are unknown still.
Okay. I wanted to know, so for the knee wall that you're putting in, which, oh, by the way, I do think I like it. Should we, I'm just wondering if we should put a note on the site plan set that says that it will mirror or match the walls that are in the front in the little pocket park? Or not?
I'm fairly certain that the material will come from those walls, but I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that's fine if you'd like to do that.
Meaning if Ready Coffee is approved, they'll be dismantling some of that, relocating some of the walls and the landscaping to accommodate the Ready Coffee building. I mean, this is not a secret, this was shown initially in a
Not
plan.
before us, so.
Right.
You're correct.
But
Yeah. If you wanted to
the latest
call it-
designs are in that they would use some of that material over here, but we could certainly call it out that would need to match.
That's fine.
I just, because, when we talk stone walls, there's
Did you
so
catch
many
that one?
different
Yeah, I was-
types.
agree.
I'm just like,
Yeah,
would
yeah,
be
yeah.
of similar style or
Yep.
something that, so that we know
like a
that you're
flat.
trying to find another design element that ties
But
it in.
And I note that
Is the wall in the
the
garden?
planter wall will, that
Well-
the materials or the stone, field stone used in the planter
Will mimic.
will mimic, comport with the field stone used in the pocket park.
Well, okay, got it.
And then my final comment is, we actually don't have a landscape plan for this planner.
So we did, on Joe Berger's site plan, he calls out the arborvitae and the boxwoods.
Oh,
So
I
that's
looked
what's going
all
to be
over.
placed
I
in
was
there.
like,
Well,
It's their notes.
yeah, it's in notes, and it's, no offense, it's a burger plan, so there's
It's
always a lot
arborvitae,
going on.
arborvitae and boxwoods.
there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
I had to find the
Yes.
note where it was to see.
Okay.
So
Because
it's just
also,
arborvitae
the
and
drawing doesn't
boxwood.
look like
Yep.
it doesn't look like it's boxwoods.
And in your cover letter, it clearly says boxwood.
And
your favorite,
arborvitae,
and
yes. Yeah.
arborvitae. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that that's in there too. And I think that's all I had.
That's a lot. You were doing some homework.
Well, I
Thank
just want to
you.
make sure it's as complete as possible so
Agree.
that you don't have to come.
Come back, yes.
Ms. Wasser?
Yeah, thanks. I have one question about the dumpster enclosure. What are the other three sides? Is it the same material?
The block,
It's block?
yes.
Painted what?
No paint. It's usually split face block. And that's going to be tucked back, if you remember where the
Yeah, it's
dumpster is.
behind that stone.
Oh, boy. I know I opened every,
It'd be on the
Now you
site
gotta find
plan, the top-down site plan
that
version.
was the other one. I'm so sorry. So the dumpster is over here, tucked in the corner.
Right.
And if you remember, there's like a fairly significant
Rock out.
rock
Outcropping.
outcrop right there.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's, and it's behind the building.
All right, that was my question, because I like that material. I would like to see that on the sides. But I echo my colleagues' comments already to my right, so I have nothing further to add.
I do just like it on the sides also, but I did note at the other plaza, it is not durable. So if the dumpster is put back
It'll
into
break.
that
It'll-
spot,
it'll
it'll
knock it.
break. Yep.
That's why you have it done with concrete around it. So, Mr. Waters?
Yeah, I think I'm the problem child here, so. But I have to be true to myself, so I, don't take any offense. So it was really hard writing this, but this is, my summation of my thoughts on this project. I'd like to clarify something that transpired at the last meeting and state for the record that due to the order in which I was selected to speak, I was not given the appropriate chance to respond to the discussion regarding cost and time of the project. I'm a designer and I've always been creative, and that is where my passion lies. But I would like it to be known that an equal strength of mine is being able to produce cost-effective designs that are within budget and can be finished on time. This project has been riddled with time constraints being the major priority. The priority was that there was an interested party leasing the space. My view regarding this particular project is that there are two sides to the cost and time. Most understand it from the applicant side. My objective is to look at a project from the town's and community's point of view also. The people of Hyde Park have waited 30-plus years to have something done to the structure. That is the time part. The cost part is a little more complicated, as the true cost to the town is the time it took waiting for the revitalization of the town core, in which the site known as the town center lies. This project may have the boards producing a waiver permits, and although the code allows this, as stated in section 108-5.11.2, titled Town Core District Standards, the code also states that the planning board has the discretion to allow waivers it deems appropriate. And I'm fine with that. I am paraphrasing that the town core district goal is to produce and be united by consistent streetscape design with appropriate pedestrian connections. I recall when I was asked to be a member of the town corridor committee that I raised the question about parcels of existing developed land that was to be rehabbed or remodeled in order to present a master plan for these types of sites that could contain scale models or even massing models. This is an important tool used in designing and planning so that one could see the overall view of a relationship from one structure to another. A conceptual, well-thought-out plan creating a united feeling which would meet cohesive town core objectives that are visually appealing. This concept was never implicated with this particular site and was developed only one structure at a time rather than encompassing project phased in over time. In closing, I would like to see what is being considered for Building 3, as well as what is in the future plans for the existing community gathering place known as the Clock Garden. Additionally, it is important to be given the appropriate time to address any issues that may need attention.
Thank you, Rob. And by the way, if you ever want to add more comment afterwards, just call me. I'll call back on you.
Yeah.
We can
Okay.
flip it.
Yeah, no, I just didn't think it was appropriate at that time, so I just
Okey-doke.
move along.
Ms. Weiser?
I have no new comments. I just want to reiterate that I believe the people in Hyde Park deserve better than what we're looking at.
Thank you. And would anyone from the public like to speak about this application? Mr. Krupnik, come on up.
Hi, Neil Krupnik, Town of Hyde Park. It sounds like this is already a done deal, so I guess this is, will be more for entertainment purposes. And this is basically a sampling from Facebook, and we can all roll our eyes about what people say on Facebook, but I think people tend to tell the truth, or they might be more willing to tell the truth than they would in person. So I've divided it between positive comments and negative comments. Here are the positive comments. Beggars can't be choosers. If I were the owner, I'd be thanking my lucky stars someone finally leased this building. The design is so much better than the abandoned eyesore that it is now. Even a drab exterior is better than what's there now. It really is a missing tooth in Hyde Park's grin, and it's time for an implant. That design looks great compared to the eyesore I have driven by my entire life, minus a few years. The fact that the building will be improved and occupied is all that we need to know. The simple update is fine and better than the eyesore it's been for years. And finally, the last positive comment, it looks boxy, really, better than empty. These are the negative comments. So it'll go from an ugly rundown building to an ugly painted building. Perhaps the correct idiom for this situation would be, quote, putting lipstick on a pig. Putting aside the fact that a key building in the center of town would be a 20-year repository for excess county office equipment, this whole proposal is a fail on so many levels. Why do we have to act like beggars? This is a terrible reason to let a business into the town. I am so tired of looking like a wreck. This is the saddest redo of a building after so much time. If it is to be used for the Board of Elections, the least they can do is make it attractive. The building itself can definitely be done better. Did an architect really design this? It could also use some redo outside of the building. There's no greenery planned. This was before the greenery was planned, so I won't even read that. This is the hometown of a former president of the United States. Can we please make these stores look presentable? And finally, that is an eyesore. I think it should be torn down. Obviously, there's some wiggle room in between. The tear down comments got a lot of anger. There also were a lot of comments that said that the people who didn't like the design were trying to kill this project, which couldn't be further from the truth. You notice the trend in the positive comments, it was all kind of like, well, what can you do? It's better than nothing, which is really, as some people have said on the board, I think we can do better for the town. And I just think that it's a great example of that the town board certainly has no control over what goes into a space. And I think a lot of people are disappointed in what the use is. I think that if this had happened a year ago, there would be a louder outcry. So I just want to point out that this is proof that the town has no control. If they fit the zoning, they can go there. So I'm happy that it's going to be used after all these years, but I really wish that we were going to see something a little bit more attractive. I think that this whole process feels like it's been very rushed. And I don't understand why, if the tenant needs to move in, why things can't be done to the outside after they've already done the improvements on the inside, because that's going to take a long time. So I really wish that people would take the time to think about this, but like I said, it sounds like it's being taken care of tonight. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Krupnick. Would anyone else like to speak? Okey doke. So let me just address a couple of things. First, yes, because this is an allowed use, it's proceeding under commercial, general, office space. It is an allowed use, and just so that people watching understand, the Planning Board is not here to deny applications. Once again, I've said this before, the enabling legislation by New York State that allows town boards to basically cede authority over these issues to planning boards is that we're supposed to, quote unquote, promote the orderly development of town. I will note here that that says promote. The stickler is orderly, but that's what we're here to do, make sure that the code is enforced. And in some cases, particularly this one, we do have a form-based code, and Board Member Waters is very correct. The whole goal of the new town center or town core was to provide consistent streetscapes, architecture, to kind of help us reclaim the small town charm that I keep seeing appearing more and more around here. But the code also in that section indicates that it doesn't have to follow any of the forms that are there or that are outlined there if they're not proposing some sort of increase in the footprint of the building. In this instance, they're actually probably decreasing the footprint because you're severing the connection to the Feeds Plus building. And there's not really a way for us to predicate making huge changes given what the nature of the applicant is proposing, which is an office space. Again, this is not designed to draw attention to itself. In other words, there's no customers walking up to this. This is not something that they actually would want. It's an area that's going to be high security, and you don't really actually want people saying, that architecture is so gorgeous, I want to just go knock on the door and see what's in there, because that's not really allowed. That doesn't mean, however, that the board has not tried to argue for and ask for the best development we can get in every case for the town. In this case, yes, it is more cosmetic, but that's really because they don't have to do much to the exterior of the building for the use. So I discussed this with our attorney today, and I've discussed it before. When you sit in the center position here as the chair, you have to weigh a lot of competing thoughts, interests, and processes, but you also have to assess what you think is likely you're going to still get back from the applicant. I mean, this past week, we've been going over small details, and as we just saw in the last application, small details can make a big difference. The quick stop, the addition of the frieze, or the brackets, the stone wall, knee wall across the front, all made it look very attractive. And I think that the initial improvements that we saw were, per Chris's suggestion, to break up the canopy, to then make the entrance a little bit more visible, to add the planter, all of those things have softened and improved it. But I don't think that we could continue this public hearing for endless weeks. But I don't think we're going to get much further along with this. And so therefore, I'm prepared to ask for a motion to close the public hearing and take a vote. This noted, we also, I hope that you've given us a better, or an updated resolution that we...
We have just provided an updated resolution.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so making a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Any nays or abstentions? And I did it again, I'm sorry. Any nays or
Do I nay?
abstentions? Nay.
It's the closing public hearing.
Oh,
That's it.
closing the public
Yes.
hearing, yeah, no, I'm
Okay,
okay
then
with
yes.
that.
And
Yes.
and again, you're welcome to say no to the resolution.
Yes.
I usually ask people to give an explanation, but I don't think we need to in this case, because I think we already have the explanation.
Right.
So, we voted yes. Mr. Oliver, you're going to introduce this. Thank you.
Resolution to grant site plan approval, Hyde Park Town Center North, Building 2. Resolution number 2022-04A, whereas. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby makes the following findings with respect to the request to modify the off-street parking standards. 1, the project involves the redevelopment of an existing building in an existing shopping center. It is not feasible to create approximately 90 additional off-street parking spaces at the property. Further, the particular nature of the proposed office use will have a small number of employees and guests in relation to the size of Building 2. 2, there is no potentially significant adverse impact on neighboring properties from the reduction in off-street parking. Parking at the property is shared. Building 2 was formerly used as a grocery store, which accommodated a higher intensity of use. 3, the applicant has agreed to limit the number of persons occupying Building 2 to no more than 50 people in light of the inability to provide 120 off-street parking spaces. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby grants site plan approval to the project as depicted on site plan set and authorizes the chair as authorized designee to sign the site plan set after compliance with the following conditions. 1, payment of all fees in escrow. 2, approval by the DBCH for the methods of water supply and wastewater disposal. 3, revision of sheet T1 to delete the general bulk table. 4, revision of sheet T1 to include the following note. Occupancy of Building 2 shall be limited to no more than 50 persons. 5, revision of sheet T1 to include the owner's signature block. 6, revision of SP1 to add a note that the canopy will not be illuminated from within, and to add a detail of the proposed cylindrical lamps also used as Buildings 3 and 4 above Building 2's entry and exit doors. 7, revision of the site plan set to include a note that lighting shall not exceed 3,000 K. 8, revision of the elevation sheet to change the southwest label to west. 9, revision of the site plan set to include the following note. Planting shall be maintained for the life of the use and shall be replaced as necessary and in kind unless a substitution is allowed by the zoning administrator. 10, revision of the site plan set to include the updated dumpster elevation received by email on April 20th, 2022. 11, revision of the site plan set to switch locations of the 5 wall pack lights and future sign locations so that the wall packs are below the sign or eliminated altogether. 12, revision of the site plan set to include the following note. The field stone in the planter shall match the existing field stone in the pocket park. 13, submission of the physical samples of project materials to the zoning administrator, including canvas material, paint, and siding. Be it further resolved, the Prior to the zoning administrator authorizing issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall provide the planning board with a PDF of the fully signed site plan. Be it further resolved that the applicant must apply for a separate sign permit for the proposed tenant sign once the sign design is finalized.
Second?
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I just have a quick comment. So the condition 13 does ask for physical samples, and the applicant did request PDF samples, and so I just wanted you to discuss whether you actually wanted physical samples.
Board?
I thought it was a blend.
I would
Yeah.
just ask if we can do the PDF, only because I don't know if we'll have a problem with these materials, but we are having problems getting samples for materials from distributors with the, you know, what's going on in the world. So if we can provide a PDF with the manufacturer's spec, you know, specification and the name, it looks very nice on a PDF plan, so you have the image and then underneath you
Yeah, I
have
would just like to
everything
be able to,
listed.
yeah.
So you know once it's
I
built.
mean, I'm okay with that.
As long as you've got the
Right.
manufacturer's specs on, I think it's
Right.
okay.
And the
But
color.
you can't catch the sheen, you don't see the
Yeah, that's
texture,
something,
you
but
don't
I-
see a lot of things.
I don't think you're going to be putting a high gloss sheen awning.
No, I would agree. Yep. It's up to you.
I'm fine with PDF.
I'm fine with that.
That's three of us. Any more?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to change the word physical to just take it out, submission of samples of project materials, and then it's open, it could be physical or PDF.
Did you make that change, Chris?
I did.
All crossed out.
I don't think I need to get a new motion to reapprove as amended. It's already been amended.
approve it yet, we didn't vote.
You
Right,
did a
okay.
motion and second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Do you want to say digital or physical samples?
No, we
No.
removed the word physical, so it can be either.
Let's just
Okay.
leave
Or
it a
mix.
PDF. Just a
Whatever's
general.
available.
Yeah, whatever's available.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Ms. Whitman, do you want to call the roll? Might be easier in this case.
Sure. Ms. Hyde,
Nay.
Ms. Blosser,
Yes.
Mr. Waters,
Nay.
Mr. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Vice Chair Dexter,
Yes.
and Chairman DeFreeze.
Yes. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you very much.
We will see you shortly, I hope, after the
Yes.
sign.
Yes, correct. Have a nice evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Kelly.
you. The next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for East Park Deli and Grocery. Making a motion to reopen the public hearing.
So moved?
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you. And Mr. Milliken, so we have a resolution prepared for tonight as well.
Okay.
Let me turn it over to you.
Missed it. I was trying to
This
open the
was,
file.
we met already on this once.
Yes.
This is an actual big improvement to an existing deli known as Krauser's. This was originally given to us as East Park Deli and Grocery, but it was revealed more recently that the owner would like to keep the name Krauser's for a variety of marketing branding reasons.
That
I think it
appears
was
to
the
be
hard
the
rolls.
case.
At any rate, and you've refined the color now, I notice.
The siding sample is a representation. It's
This would be the color instead of the cream that was initially proposed. This is the color for the Krauser's.
like a
You guys
medium,
want to see it?
Ah, okay.
medium gray color. It's
Yeah, okay.
as was recommended.
Did you guys get a chance to see this?
I
This is
did.
the-
Yes.
Thank you.
So the changes are the color of the face and the removal of the parking spaces on the north side of the property that were there were not necessary, so we took them out. And the sign design, I just put in as a placeholder the current sign design, which has a large letter as the kind of a flourish to the sign, but the other letters are within spec, so I don't know if there's the ability to let an
This is a
existing
tad, this is
sign
a tad
stand.
question. This is a tad
It's an
question.
existing sign right now that you're not changing.
Well, I think the frame of the sign, like the design, I think he'd prefer if the design stayed the same, so there's a continuation.
Bye,
there.
Bonnie, thank you. Good night.
But the street side sign is falling apart. The frame of it is leaning and all that, so it needs to be rebuilt. And the wall sign would have exterior lighting instead of interior lighting. So those would be the changes.
I'm sorry, just
But-
so I'm clear, you're replacing the sign, but you want to use the same design.
Well, if that's agreeable, but.
Because
if
we're an
not,
historic community, and this sign has now been
It's
there
an
long enough.
internally lit?
It's kind of, so what they're proposing to do is change the sign, but leave the graphics the same. So it wouldn't be internally lit, it would be a new sign face, as I understand it, because it wouldn't have the internally lit
Right.
portion to it. It'd be lit by down lighting. Our code for the newer members states that if a sign comes down or is repaired or anything else, it must come into greater conformance. So we, as a planning board, are allowed to give dimensional increases up to a certain amount. I think it's 24 inches. It's every 20 feet that something is set back from its main access road. This is maybe 60 feet, so the most we could give would be 6 inches, which would mean that the K would be 16 inches as opposed to the permitted 10. Anything bigger than that would have to have a variance.
No,
What?
it's 20 feet and 1 inch.
That's how far back the building is?
No. For every 20 feet.
Oh, I think isn't it about, when I tried to measure it or scale it out, I thought it was 60 feet from, am I wrong?
So you would get
That's
3
3
inches.
Oh, 3,
3
which would mean the biggest K would be 15 inches, sorry. Or 13 inches.
13 inches.
I can't do math tonight. Thank God I don't have a checkbook in my hand.
But you have a lot of other people listening.
Thank you. So the max would be 13, so if he wants to keep the same graphic design, I think he has to get a variance. And if he wants the bigger K for the freestanding sign, that's not 20 feet back, so we can't grant anything for that.
I see.
I believe that the board would probably be looked for favorably on us suggesting that they grant the variance if you want to do that, but there is a process to follow and it takes a while.
Well, I'll present that to the owner. So if a condition of approval is to.
We could bifurcate the signs tonight.
Right, and do the
remove
signs
it.
later. Right. That'd be fine.
So it's, that's
I
where,
think
it's important.
it's an
Look,
image, it's important to him.
I actually think it's fine to keep the K and the logo there. I think it looks nice and old, the
Yeah.
graphic, the design is old-fashioned. Well,
It's what it was.
I started to say old-fashioned, but reminds me when I was a kid, in other words. I'm that old that I'm now old-fashioned, so.
Yeah, if it wasn't a letter, it would be more of a design feature.
I mean,
But-
all of us, I think everybody on the board likes it, so we would recommend that they get it. But what we'll do is, we would be approving tonight, not the signs, just the sign location.
Understood.
Resolution.
Which means you have to come back for a sign permit once you get your variance.
That's fine. There was, the owner was going back and forth on the whole, even the name of the
Sure.
business,
sure.
so at
It's
least
a
we
big
got that
change.
far.
I mean,
But
it's
it's
a
history.
huge
It's-
change.
It's the
I
image.
like the
image,
history of
it's
it.
The
I like
feeling.
the camping stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, before we change the sign code, all the signs that were non-conforming would have to be made conforming after 10 years, including this one, unless you got a variance. But we don't allow neon signs like the Roosevelt Inn. And that sign looks like Hyde Park to me. It looks really old-fashioned, like it fits the building. So we changed that to allow them not to have that, because we're supposed to be an historic town. Anyway,
They're still debating the law. Oh, they're reading the code, sorry.
is he taking the current sign and just taking the lights out of it?
Right.
There's a box, right? And you're
Correct,
taking
there's
the
a box
face
there.
off and having a new face made and putting a face back on.
Well, I believe the new, the code has changed so that the overall size of that panel is too large as it exists now. So to bring it to better conformance,
But,
we would change the.
That's it?
because if you
the
took
dimensions.
your face and then built around the existing face, that would potentially still be the existing non-conforming sign.
But once you take it
But once you take it down and replace it, it's no longer non-conforming.
Yeah, I understand. But, right, like I said before, the street side sign is falling apart. It needs to
Yeah.
be rebuilt.
And you
So
probably
that-
want 2 new signs,
Okay,
is what
so
I'm trying
we're
to
just going to
say.
take the signs out of the resolution.
That's
right
fine.
now.
Okay. So first, any additional comments, Ms. Moss?
No.
Let me start from my left. Ms. Weiser, comments?
No, I have no comments.
Mr. Waters?
No, thank you for listening. It's great, and I'm for the sign. So.
Ms. Wasser?
Nothing to add, I agree with my colleagues.
Ms. Dexter?
Yes, I like the sign also. Here's another thing, Victoria, I have some questions. So you showed us a sample of the clapboard siding, right?
Well, it's a representation, yeah.
So, again, as I said with the previous applicant, is we tend to like to know the manufacturer and the color that is being chosen.
Right.
And that applies not only to the clapboard, but the asphalt shingle roof, which currently just says dark gray/brown.
Well,
And so we would want to know,
it's meant
Is
to be
that-
similar to that, but,
right, so we would do pretty much what we just did for the previous applicant, I think, is say that we would need to know. Plus,
Yeah.
you're painting the brick, so who's the manufacturer and what's,
well, it'd be a color that would be color matched
You'll
to the,
right, but,
You color match those.
right,
Yeah.
right. But again, just for our it's mostly for our records, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And Victoria, can you take the last condition that was added about
There's a gray flag in the
physical
Yeah.
or digital sample set being
And
submitted?
add that,
Same
And add
one?
that-
Sure.
thank
I
you.
should probably take this.
Yeah,
one.
understood.
There was also two other design elements on the elevations, which I don't know if this needs to be addressed or not, but the PVC trim on the new gable and the soffit, they show as white.
that would be the intention. I mean, it's just, has to provide some contrast on the elevation.
Right, and I'm not sure, I mean, PVC is white, and it doesn't come in other colors, I don't think. But the soffit might be painted, and we did have a specific paint for the trim on the previous
I see.
application. So,
Yeah, we
again,
didn't really
just trying to
discuss
keep
the soffit.
everything, keep the design elements,
If you want to keep the soffit white, in other words, just add that to the materials.
Yeah, understood.
okay?
I think white would make the most sense. It's where the.
Because it's contrast.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're showing on the
Yep.
elevation
Right.
here, so I mean, I took it as it was a very distinct design element, and,
Okay.
I like it. I wanted to verify that there's no windows or doors,
Correct.
okay, so that's good. And then, I just had a comment, the sidewalk there and the planters that are proposed, that sidewalk is more of just like a curb. It's very narrow, I don't think it's 4.5 feet. But unfortunately, your elevations, there was no measurements.
Well, we weren't proposing to really do any
Well,
work to the
you're
sidewalk.
proposing a planter?
Right,
to
to
put
soften the
plantings?
front edge, right.
And, that whole section of Hyde Park, I see people trying to walk, and they can't walk on that sidewalk, because it's not really a sidewalk, and literally, there's this much room between the white line. I can't believe that they designed it so that there's a large population that walks in there. Anyway, as I was really staring at it today, and I was looking at the images that had been furnished to us, I'm like, I'd almost prefer just to see the planters go away and make that a wide sidewalk. So as people are trying to get either to Krausers or points north or come back south, they have one little safe place that they can walk on for a few feet.
Yeah, I wasn't here when they designed it, when somebody installed that originally.
No, I know, but I don't even think that that's a standard sidewalk width now. I don't even think it's
It
4.5
isn't.
feet.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's adjacent to a residential property to the south, and there's just lawn. It just stops, and there's.
Oh, I know,
lawn.
no, I know.
And to the north, I guess it does more or less connect to the gas station, but again.
If you go out
it
into
wasn't-
9G around the sign,
Yeah, it's not ideal, granted.
No.
but
They've got a
it is-
stone base on the
that's-
mobile
That's
sign,
what's
so-
there now, and
Yeah,
it
no,
wasn't
it's just kind of,
necessarily part of the
I mean, to
project
call it a
originally.
sidewalk is kind of, anyway, I was just looking at it, and I drive by there every single day, and when I see people trying to walk, I just feel so bad. I see young mothers with people in strollers, I see older people with canes, and I think we're very blessed that no one, there's been, well, I don't know, I guess I wouldn't know if anybody's been injured seriously there. So anyway, I guess my comment was, I would have been okay to just get rid of the planters and just add width to that sidewalk so people could at least have a little place. But, you know, that's just my thoughts, so nobody else has brought it up. But I wanted to just put it on the record because
Understand.
it's something that I was looking at. And, oh, and then the only other thing is on the site plan, I think, the base of the light poles, do you have them painted yellow? Is that on here?
There aren't any light poles on the property,
There are none? Okay.
I don't think. The only lighting we're proposing is right under that overhang.
Okay, so there's not, okay. Thank you. Sorry,
Thank you,
that's all I
Ann.
have.
Mr. Oliver, that was plenty.
I appreciate the changes you've made and providing our board with the color samples that you did. And I kind of like the original sign with the contrast it provides on the gray background. Whatever we can do to get as close to that and be, you know, in a conforming to our code, I think that would be great, because I do kind of think that's a landmark, and people see that sign and color, and I think it's going to stand out more on that gray building. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Mr. Grucio?
No comments. I mean, I think it's going to look great.
I did offer to the owner a very similar design with a reduced size K, but we didn't have enough back and forth. I didn't feel it was appropriate to push that version until he's made up his mind.
Yeah, I don't think you need to.
Are the windows tinted, or?
Oh, no. That's,
Okay. So,
it's hard to represent glass.
so I think what would help with that image, though, if you're looking at it, if that was that blue wash in there,
I see.
I think it would open and lighten that whole place, the whole building up, and make the gray not
Yeah, normally
so
it's
blah.
not gray.
Yeah,
Gray.
monotone. I think it would really, it would show the light
As a
into the
graphic.
building. Yeah.
Cynthia and I discussed this when we first looked at it. When you look at this on the sheet, it just looks like a gray blah. And the roof looks so similar with the walls, and I said, I don't think this is meant to look like these colors exactly.
There's limitations.
Yes.
Yeah. So, would any member of the public like to speak about this application? There being none, I think we're ready to close. By the way, I want to address one thing I forgot, sorry, Ann. The problem with that sidewalk, quote-unquote sidewalk, is it's one person can walk in it because it's that narrow. But when it was put in, it's obviously was put in at a DOT design because it's basically providing curbs to
Yeah,
channelize
it's
the
just a
entrance.
curb,
That's
yeah.
all that it is.
Yeah.
And it would need to have a bunch of things added into it that I think at the time when we first had when we had a pre-app meeting, it's not that budget is necessarily something that we're supposed to consider everything, but this needs an aesthetic upgrade, and you're providing that, and we know that the owner doesn't have an unlimited budget, I guess is how I'll say it. So, at any rate, Megan, did we close the public hearing?
No, not yet.
Make it a motion,
Ask for a motion.
make it a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
And
Wiser.
We have,
Ann gets to introduce this
Yes.
resolution. You got her the updated one?
Yes, I
Thank you,
did.
perfect.
Yay. Resolution to grant site plan approval, East Park Deli and Grocery, April 20th, 2022. Resolution number 2022-07A. Yep, I do need to remove my mask. Whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby grants site plan approval to the project as depicted on the site plan set and authorizes the chair or his authorized designee to sign the site plan set after compliance with the following conditions. 1, payment of all fees in escrow. 2, revision of the site plan set to secure the propane tanks east of the building in accordance with the standards of Chapter 60 of the Town Code. 3, approval of an affidavit of ownership by the attorney to the planning board. 4, revision of the site plan set to include a note that lighting shall not exceed 3,000 Kelvin. 5, revision to the site plan set to include the following note. There shall be no outdoor storage of inventory inconsistent with the site plan without site plan amendment approval from the planning board. 6, approval by the zoning administrator of a detailed landscaping plan for the proposed new landscape area with curb in the northeast west corner of the property near the freestanding sign. 7, revision of the site plan set to include a note indicating that the proposed signage is not being approved as part of the site plan and that the applicant must obtain all required approvals for such signs. 8, submission of samples of project materials to the zoning administrator, including paint, roof shingles, and siding. Be it further resolved that prior to the zoning administrator authorizing the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall provide the planning board with a PDF of the fully signed site plan set.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second. Stephanie Wasser.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Milliken, and we'll see you back when you're ready for the sign permit. And if you, like I said, if you,
I'll note, my office has drafted an affidavit, so we will get it over to, I guess, Mr. Milliken to give to the
That's fine.
client? Okay.
I appreciate it.
I don't know.
miss.
Do you want the sample?
Or do we want to keep these?
Oh, it's up to you. I don't need them.
Cynthia, do we keep the samples?
I keep them in the file.
Well, I don't think those are the ones that are representative of what is being.
Right, you should give
There
those
might
back.
be a final version.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You want these back?
yeah, I've got to sign.
Okay, I'll take it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we move in.
The next item on the agenda is a resolution for MALCARNE Showroom. We opened a public hearing. We had no comments on it. This is at 4236 Albany Post Road, or for locals, the old Row Building. And basically, the applicant has, thank you, Cynthia, has proposed another aesthetic upgrade, including a new roof, some changes to the entry, et cetera. There weren't really any issues on it, and the entire board actually spoke favorably of the changes. Anybody have any questions or comments? Mr. Gercio, I think you're introducing this resolution?
Okay. Resolution to grant site plan approval dated April 20th, 2022, Resolution 2022-11A. Whereas the applicant, Creamstone Development, has submitted an application for site plan approval to convert an existing building into a retail store and showroom and to take exterior changes to the building at property located at 4236 Albany Post Road, tax parcel 606402958898. Whereas now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby grants site plan approval to the project as depicted on site plan set and authorizes the chair or his authorized designee to sign the site plan set after compliance with the following conditions. Payment of all fees and escrows. Be it further resolved that prior to zoning administrator authorizing issuance of building permit or sign permit, the applicant shall provide the planning board with a PDF of fully signed site plan set.
Is there a second?
Rob Waters, seconds.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion carries. Congratulations, Vivian.
Thank you.
Nice working with you as always.
Same
It took a
here.
while, but then once you got here, it sped through.
No, it's great. Thank you very much. for all your
Congratulations.
help.
Can't wait to
We
see
can't wait
that
to
new
see
roof.
it, yeah.
Me too. In my lifetime. Thank you very
Well,
much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good
Thanks.
evening.
The next item on the agenda is a sign permit recommendation for TAD to authorize the sign permit for actually a sign that already exists. This is KO Storage, formerly Staatsburg Storage. We had a recommendation letter from TAD that we received about a week ago stating that it was code compliant and there were no issues otherwise. Anybody have any questions?
I have one question. I don't think the applicant is here, but one of the other signs that is on the wall is peeling off and hanging there.
Do you mean one of the things that's supposed to make it look like it's a,
A garage, yeah.
the green thingies?
Yes.
Oh, I saw that.
The laminate side?
Yeah. And it looks like it's gonna be on the ground soon.
They're coming back in front of us for roof-mounted
Solar panel?
solar panels, so we could probably mention that.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they may not even want those. That was really
I
Mr.
know, it was
Hutchins who
the
wanted it.
previous owner.
And I think I've said this before, but some friends are building a house up here and we're looking for storage. And actually, every storage facility within a 30-mile radius is completely booked.
Wow.
I don't know if you guys know that. That's one of the reasons why they are looking to expand a lot of them. I didn't realize what really lucrative business this is and how
Oh,
many people
yes.
use these things. But particularly, they said, Scott told me during COVID, everything sold out. I think
Wow.
Red Hook, Red Hook Storage has a satellite location that they have one that's like 11 by 9, which wasn't enough for her, what she needed to store. So at any rate, this, I believe, is Mr. Waters' resolution?
Yes. Resolution recommendation for issuance of sign permit pursuant to Town Code Section 108-24.3A4D. KO Storage freestanding sign, parcel 6066-02891661, resolution 2002-13. Whereas, be it resolved, the board hereby recommends the zoning administrator issue the sign permit for KO Storage as submitted by Courtney Marshala on April 6, 2002, and drawing submitted by email on March 29, 2002.
Second?
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is a recommendation from our zoning administrator for the construction of a gated deck around an existing above-ground pool. I note here that we actually gave them the same waiver for the pool without the deck not that long ago. And I believe this is, anybody have any questions? This is Stephanie's resolution?
Yes, thank you. Site plan waiver, Town Code Section 108-9.4C2, April 20th, 2022, Resolution 2022-14. Whereas a request for site plan waiver has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Tom Raish for installation of a 10-foot by 12-foot gated deck for their above-ground pool associated with a single-family home requiring a building permit, and whereas, therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the proposed changes as described in the building permit received by the Building Department April 8th, 2022, and per the request of the Planning Board dated April 18th, 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously as well, and there being no other business before the board tonight, may I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Finally, it slipped in there. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I want to thank the town board and Supervisor Torgiani, who I believe is here, for providing the resources to televise us tonight. And also, again, thank all the applicants for investing in our community.
Thank you.